Welcome to Old Lantern Tales, where shadows speak and secrets linger. Tonight's story is full of mystery, whispers, and truths you might wish you never uncovered. Listen closely, if you dare. Chapter 1. The ledger's shadow appears. The rain did not fall, it crept. Thin, deliberate, almost alive, sliding across London's cobblestones as though testing the city's nerves. Fog clawed its way up from the Thames, curling around gas lamps, swallowing the streets in a gray haze. Outside 221B Baker Street, the city felt unreal, twisted into alleys and corners where shadows whispered secrets no one should hear. I sat near the hearth, the fire struggling against the chill, attempting to read, but the words refused me, swimming and melting before my eyes. Holmes stood at the window, unblinking, a sharp silhouette against the trembling gray. He did not move, but the air seemed heavier where he stood. A faint movement across the street caught my eye, a shadow that paused unnaturally, then vanished. My pulse quickened. Holmes did not notice, or perhaps he did. He never blinked. Then 3 sharp raps at the door shattered the silence. Mrs. Hudson appeared moments later, pale under the lamplight, holding a single envelope between trembling fingers. No footsteps, no name, just this, she murmured, voice tight. Holmes took it without a word. The wax seal was jagged, black, almost carved into a void itself. When his fingers brushed it, a sudden ember leapt from the fire, dancing along the rug. I told myself it was coincidence. I lied. Holmes broke the seal. The letter smelled faintly of iron, and the ink shimmered as though aware of our gaze. He read silently, face shadowed. Then he froze. A long moment passed, thick, expectant, suffocating. "Watson," he said finally, low and deliberate. "This letter was not written to be read. It was meant to be obeyed." He handed it to me. My hands trembled. The Blackwood ledger is awake. It does not remember, it chooses. The ink scrawled jagged letters, a map of London etched as if burned into my mind. Blackwood Alley, Westminster, the Thames, each location marked with the same angular sigil, pulsing faintly as though breathing. "These are not crime scenes," Holmes whispered. "They are stages." He traced a fresh mark near the edge of the page, added, "Today." A chill wound around me like a living thing. Something stirred outside the window. Not a figure, not solid, something thinner, darker, a smear of night sliding against the bricks. I held my breath. It moved closer, then vanished. Holmes did not flinch. "That," he said, voice barely audible, "is confirmation." Mrs. Hudson crossed herself and withdrew quickly, muttering prayers under her breath. Holmes turned the letter, surgeon-like, eyes sharp as scalpels. The Blackwoods, erased from history after a string of inconvenient deaths. Estates condemned. Families buried. And now, his jaw tightened. "They've reached us." At the bottom of the page, a new line shimmered faintly as though appearing just for me. March 15th, 1898. John H. Watson. My chest tightened. The room seemed smaller. The fire dimmed. From the corners, whispers rose, not words, but intent. A deliberate, cold promise. "This does not mean you are the victim," Holmes said, after a pause thick with unspoken dread. "It means you are relevant." A gust rattled the windows, carrying the faintest scent of burning parchment. The ink quivered. Lines shifted, almost imperceptibly, under my gaze. A heartbeat, or the ledger's pulse, echoed faintly in my ears. Holmes folded the letter carefully into his coat, his eyes never leaving the window. "Watson," he murmured, darker than I had ever heard. "This ledger does not record death." He turned slowly to the fogged glass. "It authorizes it." A sudden chill raced down my spine. The shadows seemed thicker now, moving independently, stretching into corners the fire could not reach. From somewhere unseen, a soft scraping sound paper shifting against paper, as though the ledger itself breathed. Outside, the rain thickened into sheets, hammering the cobblestones. Somewhere in London, unseen, the ledger's first prediction waited, and I knew, with a hollow certainty curling in my gut, that before dawn broke, the city would pay its debt. One mark on the page glimmered faintly. New. Impossible. Its intent unspoken, but clear. Something was watching. Something had chosen. And we were next in line to witness. Chapter 2. Echoes of the Past. The fog had thickened overnight, smothering London in a viscous, suffocating embrace. Lamp posts flickered weakly, their pale light swallowed before it touched the damp cobblestones. Every alley yawned like a black maw, whispering threats I could not comprehend. Holmes and I followed the first location etched into the ledger, a churchyard abandoned for decades, its iron gates bent as if resisting intrusion. The scent of wet stone and decay curled in the air, a promise of long-forgotten deaths waiting to awaken. I shivered, every step heavier than the last, the fog pressing against me like a living hand. Holmes moved ahead, precise, measured, yet I noted a tension I had never seen before. His gaze flicked to shadows, as if reading their intentions. The churchyard lay silent, oppressive. Moss crawled across tombstones, blackened with age. Soil shifted underfoot, subtle tremors betraying secrets beneath the crusted earth. Then I saw it, a patch of freshly turned soil beside a tomb, engraved with a Blackwood name, obliterated from memory yet impossible to ignore. At its center lay a child's locket, tarnished, its chain twisting unnaturally, writhing as if alive. Holmes knelt, eyes sharp, piercing. He did not touch the locket. "Watson," he murmured, voice low, deliberate. "The ledger is not passive. It observes. It tests. It waits until we notice. Then it acts." A rustle behind us made me spin. From the fog emerged a cloaked figure, impossibly still. Yet every movement defied natural law. Limbs bent at impossible angles, tilting, stretching, folding in ways that violated human design. Its eyes reflected the lamplight, bright and liquid. Aware of everything we feared, I felt the first cold tremor of true dread. Holmes's hand twitched near his coat, poised. "Observe," he whispered. "The ledger does not merely choose victims. It selects witnesses, players. Those who pry become part of its design." The figure tilted its head, unnervingly human in its mockery, then dissipated into the fog. A gust carried the acrid scent of ink and scorched paper, the ledger, unseen yet intimately present. Holmes crouched, uncovering a half-buried page. Jagged writing scorched my vision. "We. The first has fallen. Watch closely, for the next will scream." The locket quivered violently. Holmes slid the page into his coat, eyes scanning the shadows with surgical precision. "The ledger does not merely observe," he said. "It learns. It manipulates. Every glance, every thought we give it, feeds its will. Consider yourselves hunted, Watson." A metallic clang echoed across the tombstones. I froze. The fog swirled unnaturally, spiraling into shapes resembling clawed hands, reaching for us. Something moved behind me, neither spirit nor human, tethered to the ledger. My pulse thundered. I felt each beat as a drum of impending doom. Holmes did not speak, but his eyes flicked to it, acknowledgement brief, precise. We retraced our steps through twisting alleys, fog now coiling around familiar streets, obstructing paths, forcing hesitation. Every lamppost distorted shadows, elongating forms that did not belong. I felt unseen, eyes calculating, measuring, waiting. A sudden brush against my shoulder, vine or hand, sent a cold shiver through me. The fog shifted, leaving me breathless and unsteady. Holmes's hand rested lightly on my arm, steadying me, yet I caught the rare tightening of his jaw. He, too, was unsettled. Back at Baker Street, Holmes stared into the hearth, lost in thought. "Watson," he said finally, voice low and deliberate. "The ledger is awake. Every step we take is recorded in its design. We are variables now, pieces on a board we cannot see." Sleep eluded me, shadows of the locket trembling, the page buried in earth. The figure watching from fog haunted me relentlessly. Whispers echoed at the edges of my perception, faint screams that had not yet sounded but promised terror. I dared glance at the ledger again. A line appeared, almost imperceptibly, ink shimmering, as if alive. March 16th, 1898. Next victim. Unknown, but near. A hollow certainty curled in my gut. Its first scream would pierce London tonight. The ledger's game had begun, and it had already chosen who would hear it, who would witness it, and who might not live to see dawn. Somewhere beyond the veil of fog, unseen, the ledger's design unfolded. And I knew, with cold clarity, we were no longer merely observers. We were participants, drawn inexorably into its cruel orchestration. Chapter 3. The First Mark. London awoke beneath a sky so gray it seemed to sag over the city, pressing down with quiet malevolence. Rain slicked the cobblestones, turning streets into mirrors that reflected gas lamps like unblinking eyes, silent watchers, waiting. Holmes and I moved toward Fleet Street, summoned by a terse note from Inspector Lestrade. The ledger had claimed its first victim. Dread clung to me like a second skin, each step heavier than the last. The alley behind the printing press was narrow, suffocating, walls pressing inward. A corpse lay sprawled unnaturally, limbs locked in a final, frozen pose, as if night itself had conspired to trap it. Beside it, a small placard rested, scrawled in jagged handwriting the ledger's unmistakable signature. "The first has fallen. Watch closely, for the next will scream." Holmes crouched, eyes flicking over every detail, muscles taut. "Notice the positioning," he murmured, voice cold, precise, not random, ritualistic. "The ledger does not merely record it, orchestrates." Shadows clung to walls, twisting and elongating when looked at directly. A lamplight flickered. I could have sworn a figure leaned beyond vision, tilting its head, unseen yet aware. The air itself seemed to vibrate, charged with intent. My pulse thundered in my ears. Each beat, a warning drum. Street urchins peeked from corners, pale and unnervingly still. Not children, I realized, but sentinels part of the ledger's cruel theater. Holmes's hand twitched near his coat. His jaw tightened, a fleeting crack in his stoic mask. "The ledger selects more than victims," he whispered. "It observes. It tests. It manipulates the curious." From the fog came a whisper, low and insistent. "Next. Next." My skin crawled. Goosebumps rose in rivulets along my arms. Holmes's eyes narrowed, scanning rooftops, windows, and shadows alike. "It knows we are watching," he said, muscles tensed, not confident, not cocky but alive. Vulnerable. On a distant roof, a hooded figure appeared, silhouette impossibly angular against the swirling fog. Its head tilted, movements deliberate, mocking. Then it vanished, leaving only a chill that seeped into my bones. The alley exhaled, the familiar acrid scent of ink and scorched paper, the ledger's presence. Intimate and omnipresent. The stone walls themselves seemed to pulse, shadows writhing independently. as though the city itself had learned to obey. Holmes drew the page recovered from Westminster churchyard. The jagged writing shimmered faintly. Alive. Each death leaves a breadcrumb. Follow them closely. Fail, and you become part of the record. Then came the scream. High-pitched, layered, unnatural, a black tide folding upon itself. I stumbled, pressing my hands to my ears, but the sound threaded through my thoughts regardless. The fog twisted as if writhing to the scream's rhythm. Holmes's eyes mirrored mine, calm, precise, alert. The ledger had begun its choreography. A child's voice cut through the mist, sharp and fractured. They see you. Don't go. Don't look. I spun the alley empty. Shadows convulsed, forming impossible shapes that dissolved when confronted. One nearly brushed my shoulder, warm and wet like ink. My breath caught, legs trembling. I pressed against the wall. Holmes steadied me, jaw tight, eyes scanning every corner. Fear is measurable, Watson, he said quietly, voice chilling. Predictable. Tonight, London is its playground. Every glance, every step it adapts. It learns. And we are pieces on its board. We return to Baker Street, weighed by the first death and the sense of being relentlessly observed. Holmes traced invisible patterns across the floor, lips moving silently, calculating. The ledger is awake, he said, and we are now part of it. Sleep abandoned me. Shadows of the alley, the trembling placard, the hooded figure haunting every corner of my mind. The echo of the scream threaded through the fog, finding me even in my sanctuary. I dared glance at the ledger again. A faint shimmer traced new lines, ink alive. March 17th, 1898. Next victim. Chosen. Close. Watch carefully. A hollow certainty curled in my gut. Its next scream would echo tonight. The ledger's game had begun. And I understood, as my heartbeat matched the rhythm of London's fog, that we were no longer observers. We were pieces on a board with edges sharpened to bleed. Chapter 4. Mapping the Ledger. London lay swathed in a thick, crawling fog, curling around lampposts and rooftops like living tendrils. Every alleyway seemed to breathe, whispering secrets in languages only shadows understood. From Baker Street, Holmes and I crouched over the Blackwood ledger, candlelight flickering across grim entries. Names, dates, locations, they formed a lattice of doom, a choreography of terror meant to imprint fear upon every corner of the city. Before we could even read, a sudden tap, tap, tap echoed at the window, sharp, deliberate, irregular. Holmes's eyes flicked toward the sound. I froze. A shadow darted across the street below, too angular to be human, dissolving instantly into the fog. The ledger's presence had followed us inside. Observe, Watson, Holmes murmured, voice taut. The ledger does not kill randomly. Timing, placement, spectacle it orchestrates. It wants us to anticipate. And anticipation breeds panic. I traced the next location on the map. Blackwood Alley. By day, it seemed ordinary. But under night's cloak, every stone breathed malice. That evening, we ascended a rooftop near Street. Paul's Cathedral, vantage perfect to watch the city's arteries. Shapes shifted unnaturally in the fog, dissolving and reappearing where no one could stand. Do you see them, Watson? Holmes whispered. The ledger's enforcers are never far, invisible, yet ever present. Every scream, every footprint, every whisper, orchestrated. A low, elongated wail tore across the city, distorted and layered, almost sentient. Street vendors froze mid-step. Night watchmen stiffened, hearts hammering before reason could reach them. A lamplight flickered violently, plunging the alley below into darkness. When it returned, A figure stood motionless, pale, angular, more shadow than flesh, its eyes empty pools reflecting impossible shapes. Holmes's jaw tightened. It knows we are closing in. We descended into Blackwood Alley, fog pressing tight, damp cold seeping through our coats. Each step echoed, cobblestones sounding like drums of warning. Footprints appeared and vanished. Scratches etched the walls, messages, coded threats, or warnings from an intelligence far beyond human comprehension. A soft, musical laughter drifted through the mist. My heart leapt. The hairs on my neck stiffened. Holmes. Someone's there. Holmes's hand pressed lightly on my shoulder, tension rippling through his fingers. "Patience, Watson," he said. "We are hunters now. Or at least, we must pretend." Suddenly, a shadow lunged across the alley, brushing my sleeve, damp and cold, like a living hand. I stumbled, heart hammering, nearly losing footing. Holmes steadied me, his eyes scanning every shadow. The ledger revealed its next target. A high-profile gathering in the West End. Date, timing, method, each detail precise. The city itself had become a board. Humans mere pawns. Fear its weapon. A page from Baker Street, previously pinned to the wall, fluttered violently to my feet. Its jagged words shimmered faintly. "You think you understand. But the game is deeper, Watson. And the shadows are hungry." A chill cut through me. Fog condensed into shapes, whispering voices I almost recognized. Footsteps echoed, yet no one approached. Objects trembled. A door rattled as if pushed by invisible hands. A lamp swayed violently, then toppled, clanging like a bell of warning. Holmes's eyes darkened, reflecting candlelight in sharp glints. He traced patterns on the ledger, lips moving silently, calculating. "It senses our insight," he said. "Knowledge is power, but also danger. Each pattern we unravel tightens its grip. Every prediction, every observation, feeds it." We returned to Baker Street. London had transformed. Every whisper, a message. Every silhouette, a threat. The ledger had become omnipresent, entwined with the city's pulse, bending reality with patience and precision. Fog rolled over rooftops like a living tide, concealing forms moving in unnatural synchrony. Holmes sat in dim candlelight, mind ablaze, hands flexed, jaw tight, eyes flickering with unease. Even he, legendary for composure, felt the ledger's cold weight. I realized, with creeping horror, that its hidden heart was near. Discovering it would demand confrontation no human mind could endure. One truth settled in my chest. London was no longer a city. It was the ledger. And the ledger was watching, waiting, preparing to strike. Each heartbeat sounded like a death knell. The next strike, the ledger's next move, would be unavoidable. Chapter 5. Confrontation and the ledger's heart. A black tide hung over London that night, swallowing streets, docks, and rooftops. The wind cut like knives, hissing through the gas lamps, which flickered weakly, as if reluctant to illuminate the path. The abandoned Blackwood Manor loomed ahead, windows gaping like dark, accusing eyes. Every step toward it felt like walking into a heartbeat that did not belong to this world. Holmes moved ahead, lantern swaying, each step catalogued, precise. "The ledger leads us here," he murmured, low, urgent. "And it has been waiting. For someone like us." I followed, chest tight, lungs aching. The manor exhaled with us, air thick with dust, decay, and something alive, waiting. Floorboards groaned beneath our weight. Shadows stretched beyond reason. I caught glimpses of forms, slender, angular, curling, impossibly moving, just at the edge of perception. Before we reached the study, a whisper slid along the walls. "You cannot stop what you begin." Holmes froze, lantern trembling in his hand. I felt the same cold shiver that had followed us through Blackwood Alley. Then, with a deft twist, he revealed a hidden staircase spiraling into darkness. Ink, paper, and smoke burned. Wet, alive stung the air, clawing at memory. At the base, candlelight revealed a chamber carved from stone. Names of past victims pulsed faintly on walls, a heartbeat beneath our feet. At the center, a figure stood back to us, angular, limbs bending unnaturally. Shadows clung, flickered, separated, and wrapped around it like living smoke. "You've come far," it intoned, voice hollow, echoing unnaturally. "But the ledger is not a book. It is vision, expectation, fear." Crystallized. Holmes stepped forward, lantern swaying. "And you are its architect?" The figure turned. Its face rippled like smoke, eyes appearing in impossible places, limbs curling backward, shadows twisting unnaturally. Every pattern you traced, every name you noted. It was never about death. It is control, anticipation, the surrender of the mind to inevitability. A cold pressure pressed my chest. Breath escaped in ragged gasps. Holmes's fingers trembled slightly near the ledger page in his coat. Knowledge was weapon and trap. The chamber shuddered. Shadows lifted, forming echoing specters of past victims. Symbols etched into stone quivered, as if alive. A whisper slid across my skin. "Break the pattern, or join it." Holmes lunged, pressing a candle against the designs. I followed, tracing chaotic, disruptive lines over the meticulously arranged symbols. The floor groaned, walls quivering. Shadows shrieked, a layered, unnatural sound threading into my skull. Ink from the ledger lifted, letters writhing and reaching toward us, as if alive. The figure lunged. Limbs elongated, shadows swarming like tendrils. I stumbled backward, chest pounding, teeth gritted. Holmes grabbed me, anchoring me against the surge. Candlelight flickered violently, revealing faces etched into walls that had not been there before, eyes following every movement. A sudden screech split the air, the figure recoiled, shadows rippling violently, the chamber itself groaning. And then, silence. The figure dissolved into mist, leaving only a whisper. The ledger waits. On a pedestal lay the ledger itself. Blank, yet impossibly heavy, pulsing like a heartbeat trapped in stone. Holmes exhaled slowly. Haunted. "It's over?" I dared a glance around the chamber. Shadows lingered, reluctant to leave. Outside, the fog pressed closer, almost sentient, whispering, breathing, remembering. We stepped into London's deserted streets. The city seemed unchanged, yet every alley, every lamp, every rooftop carried memory of the ledger's influence. Fog twisted unnaturally around corners. Faint echoes of screams lingered beyond reason. Holmes's gaze sharpened yet tense. Fingers twitched, as if expecting the ledger to strike again. Sleep did not come. In dreams, pages turned themselves. Names twisted. Symbols breathed. Whispers threaded through the streets. Even awake, the presence pressed against ribs, cold fingertips brushing, tugging at senses, memory, sanity. Finally, Holmes murmured, voice low, almost a confession. "It isn't just solving the case, Watson. Surviving the knowledge it imparts. That is the true challenge. Some truths are designed to linger." And linger they did. Beyond London, in forgotten corners, in shadows unseen, the ledger's next line was already being written. Its game had evolved. Its reach, eternal. And we, merely players, could only watch, hearts tethered to its pulse, awaiting the next scene. Tonight's story has ended. Yet the whispers will follow you, waiting, watching. Stay close, for the next tale is never far. Until then, keep your eyes open and your courage close.